All right, welcome back for the third episode in what I hope to continue doing in my video game hidden gems type series, where I'm talking about those things that you can still find out there, used loose games that can still make you a few bucks if you can get lucky and find these out there. Whether you're hitting a flea market, a yard sale, a GameStop, even wherever you can find used games. Keep an eye out for some of these because it will be worth your time, as you'll see by some of these prices. Thanks again to JJ for helping me curate this list in sort of a top 10 sort of fashion. So we're going to keep it rolling. And if you want to see what games JJ picked out for you, because this is a JJ list this week for the most part. I had a little input, but JJ gave me a lot of these beat 'em up style games that we can get to. And you'll probably remember quite a few of these as we run through this list. So if you want to see what we got for you this week, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so for this week's Gaming Gold, as I said, we got a nice little list of video game hidden gems that you can find out there, and we have kind of a theme running this week, and they're all those beat 'em up type games, those kind of fighting games, not the one-on-one fighters per se, but the old school like Double Dragons and things like that, where you're just kind of running through, beating up your bosses, going through levels, etc. So let's see what we got for you this week. Thanks again, JJ, for helping me put this list together. And here's our list of games. Starting off with our first in line. This is Mighty Final Fight for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. So old school NES game, Mighty Final Fight. This is, again, like a Double Dragon type game. I might even call it a Double Dragon knockoff, I guess. But we'll show you. And I try to add a little something extra. We'll get to that in a second. But keep an eye out for this cartridge, however you want to call them. Loose could still get you a solid amount of money if you can find one, as evidenced here. $325 on average. You don't believe me with the prices? Feel free to look them up on your own outside of this. But this is what this thing is running for. $325 loose. I know. Graded games, in new in box, all that stuff. I get it. Some of those hitting record sales. They're getting the news. You're seeing them. You're like thousands of dollars for Mario in package. I get it. What are the chances you find in those things when you go out there looking? Probably slim to none. But you can find loose games out there. It's just knowing which ones are worth your time and which ones are not could be the difficult bit, because there's plenty of games that aren't worth much. But a game like this, $325, could be worth your time if you find this out at a yard sale, flea market, wherever you might be, if you can scoop it up. This is what I'm saying I wanted to add in there, and that's just a little sense of here's the cover box in case you somehow found the cover box, but get a little idea of the game and the game style of what it looked like and some of the screens and like the character selects and whatnot. Just add a little flavor and color to this series here. So that's our first bit. Mighty Final Fight. Keep an eye out for it. Old school NES. Got another old school NES for you to keep an eye out for, and this time it's a mashup. Mentioned Double Dragon, mashed up with Battletoads. Battletoads Double Dragon. Gotta be great, right? Now, if you find this one out there, it's not going to get you $325 like Mighty Final Fight, but it still could be worth your time if it's cheap enough. It's $92 is still $92. So $100 for this loose, again, loose, used Nintendo game. This is what I'm talking about. It's worth knowing this stuff, because that's $100. Because how much do you see them selling a lot of these loose games for? A lot of time there's just stacks of games. Don't give me $2, $5, $1. They're old school games. They might need a cleaning, obviously, and hopefully they work. But it could be worth taking a chance. Is all I'm saying. $92 for original Nintendo Entertainment System Battletoads Double Dragon. In case, just like the last book, you want to see what the box looks like. Here's the box. Here's some of the screens. Character selects. You can be Billy, Jimmy. You can be Rash, Zitz, or Pimple. The Battletoads. You pick who you want to be. You go through. You fight through the game. Have at it. Next, we're going to move off of Nintendo. At least move off the NES for a little bit for our next one. And we're going to go over to the Sega Master System. I had almost forgotten about the Sega Master System. And I remember the Genesis. Everybody remembers the Genesis, but I keep forgetting that there was the Master System. And yes, this cart ain't flashy. This looks much like, the old Atari. Well, even the Atari carts had more of a picture than these. I mean, this didn't even have a picture. It just had a label. This is a maroon label that looked like the maroon label that's on the Sega Master System itself. But here, Golden Axe Warrior. Loose. This little cart, this little square rectangle little cart thing could get you a decent amount of money if you can find it. $178 for Golden Axe. $178 for this little cartridge. So once again, it's worth knowing. It's worth knowing which ones to look for. And in case you're curious, you want to have a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of throwback, here you go. There's the cover box. Yeah, I got that square pattern. That was the pattern for the Master System. Old school Sega, Golden Axe Warrior. And it looks like, you have your Zelda screens down there, down below. I didn't have a Master System, so this one is not a game that I had played, but I kind of get it just by looking at it, right? Still, could be nostalgic even about things that I didn't actually play because it brings me back to another time. So there's our Master System game. We're going to back up and go back to Nintendo and hit up the Super Nintendo because a lot of these come off Super Nintendo because, well, that was like really when I was really gaming was when was Super Nintendo was the machine. So that's why I lean a bit there. But even JJ gave me a couple of these to keep an eye out for. And this first one is Knights of the Round. Knights. I don't know if I remember this one, but if you do find this, SNES, Super Nintendo cartridge, keep an eye out for it. It's also almost like $100, $93 on average for this game. Worth knowing. I looked at the screens. I don't know if I remember playing this. I don't think I own this one. Capcom game. I was a big Capcom guy, but I don't know if I remember this one. Character selects up above, and you can see down below. You got little fight screens, 3 players at once. Pretty cool looking game. Don't know if I remember it though. But now, if I see it, I know it's a $100 game if I can find it loose. Just like our next one, it's another one to keep an eye out for loose. Another Super Nintendo game. This time, King of Dragons. I'm a sword and sorcery type of fan. Dungeons and Dragons, I dig it. So I'm into this kind of stuff. And this is another one. It's about $100 if you can find it. So $96 for this loose cartridge. If you can find King of Dragons. Worth knowing, worth keeping an eye out for. Once again, if it brings you back, here's the box. There's the character select. Character select kind of reminds me of old Gauntlet. Remember Gauntlet for the old school NES? And there below, once again, fighting style, side scroller. How many side scrollers did you play? I played tons of side scrollers. Loved it. That's how you play games, right? You just go through, music pumping. You got the 8-bit. Well, this technically 16-bit at this point, but get that music going. You're going through boss level after level. Man, good times, right? Okay, enough Super Nintendo. Let's go back to Sega. And as I mentioned, Genesis. This is more what I remember. I also did not have a Genesis. My neighbor did. I played Genesis games over at their house, but Genesis, Streets of Rage. I do remember Streets of Rage. Also, kind of a Double Dragon thing. Everything always was like an acronym for something else. Well, it's like a Street Fighter game. Well, it's like a Mortal Kombat. It's like a Double Dragon type game. It's like Mega Man. It's like this. It's like that. But Streets of Rage 3. Granted, the other 2, also classic games, but they don't fetch the price of 3, which, again, still not a ton, but still worth keeping an eye out for. $63 if you can find Streets of Rage 3. So you find a $1 cartridge, old school game, it could be worth your time. Here's the box, in case you're curious of the box. Character selects. Again, you can see that same similar fighting style, side scroller. You got your health bar on the top. You had timers. Player 2 could join in, hop in, co-op through the thing. Good times. All right. Our next beat 'em up style game. Again, these are all fighting like those side-scrolling kind of beat 'em up fighter type games. Not one-on-one, head-to-head fighting like a Smash Brothers or, like I said, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. This is a side-scroller beat 'em up type game, which they don't really do much anymore. Now it's more open world. Maybe at best you get a Dynasty Warriors where you're just mauling through hundreds and hundreds of characters. But still, nostalgia. This old school gameplay definitely brings back some memories. And this next one might bring back memories for some of you. Genesis. Moonwalker. Michael Jackson. Moonwalker. Yes. 16-bit Moonwalker fighting game starring Michael Jackson. $88 ain't too bad if you can find Moonwalker. Again, just the cartridge. You don't need the whole box, all that stuff manual. It's just the cartridge alone can net you solid return if you can find it. So once again, just keep an eye out for it. But if you want to see the box, there's the box. There's the start button screen. And yeah, there's a little bit of how, yeah, you could fight. He was kind of his little smooth criminal there down below. And yeah, Moonwalker. Keep an eye out for it. All right. This is the third episode of this show, and we've done mostly Sega. We've done, some Nintendo. I said mostly Nintendo, some Sega, some of the PlayStation here, a little bit of there. But there are a lot of other systems along the line, and we'll try to get into some of those as we go through this. Again, chatting through with JJ, trying to work out what works best, what people remember, what people know. And the next one, I did not have one of these. I remember it, but this will be something for some of you that we'll again find some nostalgia for. This was the TurboGrafx 16 Splatterhouse. Yes, this looks almost like a memory card. That's what the cart kind of looked like. It almost looked like a memory card for the TurboGrafx 16. So keep an eye out for the card, because this is what we're talking about. Just the card. You don't need the box. Just the game, which is on this. Again, it almost looks like it looks like a really big memory card. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's $80 if you can find one. So $78 on average ain't too bad. And if you want to know what the box looked like, well, here you go. Here's the box. There's like the start screen, and there you go. You got a sense. Yeah, so it was kind of like a Jason kind of knockoff, running through, fighting, monsters and whatnot. You're a monster fighting monsters. So there you go. Splatterhouse. Multiple in the series as well. Multiple versions, but this is the original TurboGrafx 16. Again, memory card stick. Now, there are a lot of different media that we go through with this. Again, we saw all these carts, cart after cart, and then we had a memory card, and then we get to the CD era of gaming, and here we have Sega Saturn's entry into that. So CDs. So as you know, by now everything's on disc, if not it's a direct download on Blu-rays. But for a time, this was the shift. Sega Saturn and PlayStation came to prominence at this time, Xbox, and this is where Nintendo was stuck with a cart forever. And they even went stuck through the cart through N64. They tried to move over when they got to the GameCube, but I think it took a little bit of a shift. They were hesitant to move to the disc, Nintendo. But Sega, they moved pretty quickly, but the Saturn still wasn't that a huge hit for them, I don't believe. From what I recall, I don't remember Saturn really being a hit. Neither was the Dreamcast, really. This is kind of, it was rolling out. But Guardian Heroes is the game I'm talking about here. So Guardian Heroes, if you can find just this disc, just the disc, it's like $100, $102 on average for this game. And again, they had like the weird, like tall cases. They were like CD cases, but they were like the tall jobbies. Remember these? But there you go, just to get a sense of it, and then a sense of the the screen, the fighting. Yeah, pretty cool style. But once again, a very familiar play style, side scroller fighter. There you go. And now, as we go through this one I might qualify as not actually completely fitting this category, because it's not that this is not impossible to find, but we're still going to do it anyway. And this is our Ghost. So Ghost, we want to try to finish up with like a really tough to find one. This is not impossible to find if you're shopping online. This might be really tough to find out there in the wild, which is why I think it still works for us to put it here as a Ghost. So it's going to be hard to find, because most of the games for this system are hard to find. It's not an easy system to find things for. Online, yes, you can find them and pay up for them. They're pricey. But the Neo Geo was, again, not a system everybody had. It was not a system that everybody had in mind, nor was the Neo Geo CD system something that everybody had. I mean, we're going to get into some of this weird stuff as we go through this series. We're getting into the Jaguars and all that fun stuff. So we get Neo Geo CD, but the game we're talking about here is Mutation Nation. And it's not going to be some crazy overly priced thing. It's just finding these things is still going to be tough, because not everybody got Neo Geo and Neo Geo CD. But still, $130 is the average sales for this game, if you find it. There are Japanese versions of this out there as well, and then you got the PAL, the European versions, but it doesn't work on all systems, so you gotta have systems that can play some of these things. We can get really into the weeds with that type of stuff, but I'm just trying to talk you through just finding the loose games. We don't want to get too deep into the weeds talking about that stuff, but just take a look and know what you're looking at, because there are different versions. I'm just trying to let you know. It could get confusing, but you're probably not going to find a lot of Japanese games here. You might, but we don't live in Japan, so we're not going to get a ton of them. But you'll find some in your searches. But Mutation Nation, here's the box in case you want to see it. The screens give you a sense. Once again, familiar side scroller fighter, fun, cool, right? Just try to keep this simple. Try to keep this fun. Hopefully you found some of that interesting. Hopefully you find some of these games you go out there looking. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to touch on a little bit of nostalgia, remember some of this stuff for myself, dig in and research some of the things that I personally want to know a little bit more about, and just let you guys know too that there are things out there that you can find and you can make yourself a few bucks that you might not have been expecting to, just because you just stumble into it and you're like, what is this? I don't know, but maybe this will help you find and know what you're looking at in case you do. So once again, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate the support. Until next time, I'll see you with another list. Again, JJ gave me another list. I got another list. We got a bunch of games to still go over, and I plan to try to roll these out as often as I can. All right, so let me know in the comments with some feedback what you think. Hit me up with some memories and some games and some systems that you want to see more of, and we'll take a look. All right, so with that, thanks again. I'll see you guys later. All right.